This is Blade of the Fallen, a side-scrolling hack-and-slash game where death is not the end. You play as Takeshi Komori, a samurai with shadow abilities, and your goal is to kill everything you see here, all the enemies in every wave, and defeat all the boss fights. It is very easy to play, you just move left and right, you attack with a button and you dash with another. You basically hit an enemy over and over until they are just about to hit you, and then you dash out the way. In this game, the dash is used a bit differently than you might be used to. Instead of dashing away from an enemy, you are actually encouraged to dash through the enemy and get on the other side and keep fighting instead of running away and losing the pressure. The game seems really simple and perhaps doesn't look that interesting, but it's actually really fun, and there are a lot of things in the game that really add up to the experience. For example, if you are pressing the attack button but you're looking away from an enemy, the game figures out that you wanted to attack that enemy and turns you around. Normally, in a game you'd be punished for making a mistake like this, but I find it way more enjoyable to just remove the negative consequence of doing this. Your character moves fast, your sword attacks are massive, while the enemy attacks are much smaller and harder to hit. You can move while attacking, and while that is not that useful, the game felt really bad until I added it. Every attack moves you a bit further. This makes it much harder to miss enemies, and it feels really good. The gimmick of this game is that if you die, you will be resurrected in the Death Realm. In the Death Realm, you are forced to duel an enemy, and if you win, you revive, and if you lose, you die permanently, and the game is over. In this way, the game adds progressive failure. So instead of just going to a lose screen, you actually get to engage with the game a lot more. You feel a lot more excited and feel a lot more pressure. And in the complete version of the game, you can also not just duel the enemy and revive, but stay in the Death Realm and fight empowered versions of enemies and bosses. These empowered versions of enemies and bosses give very big rewards, such as abilities and perks. Every wave you unlock 1 or 2 new enemies, and at the wave 5 you're gonna have a boss fight. You can see the wave in the bottom left of the screen. This game was made in only 1 month for a game jam, so there's only 1 boss fight in the game. However, the boss fight is really fun, and the enemies are still really fun. We had over 20 testers who played the game, and the vast majority of them really enjoyed it. Even the people who aren't into video games or this type of game journal, they still managed to have fun with it. Every single piece of feedback anyone said to me, I have stored it somewhere. And whenever I was making a decision like what to add to the game, I would take that feedback into account. I'm trying to do what Valve does with their games. They playtest a lot, and they use that to make the game as best as it can possibly be. I believe that watching people play your game is one of the best, if not the best way to improve your game, by just listening to the feedback, instead of making assumptions that could be wrong. When you reach the 3rd wave, you unlock the Goblin, and their gimmick is that they throw bombs at you. Someone suggested that it would be really fun if you would be able to deflect the Goblin's bombs while they were in mid-air. So like, you attack them, and the bombs go backwards, and they hit the Goblin and damage the Goblin instead of damaging you. And so I added that. And every person who discovered it while playing really liked it. It was really a really cool idea. And one player liked it so much that they specifically asked for a minigame where all you do is you volleyball with the goblins. I also made it so you can deflect arrows shot by the archer while I was at it. While designing the game, I put a lot of effort into making the best experience possible for the players, even if this is not their kind of game or they don't play games that much. All the decisions in the design process were made specifically to help that. The game doesn't let you increase your max health or get any sort of damage reduction in any way, and the only upgrades you can get are upgrades that increase your damage. This is intentional, so that the game never loses the amount of pressure it has on you. You die in as many hits from the beginning to the very end, and it makes balancing a lot easier because I don't have to take into account if the player had gotten health upgrade. As a side note, I feel like health upgrades are one of the most boring upgrades you could get in a game. It doesn't make the games faster, it makes you stronger, but in a boring way. The game's camera will move forward in the direction you're looking, but it will not do that if you're currently attacking, so that it doesn't mess up with what you're seeing. When you haven't attacked in a while, your character moves faster until they start combat again. When you kill a lot of enemies really quickly and the next ones are farther away, this mechanic really helps with how the game feels. On the left and on the right of the screen, there are indicators to show if there are enemies in that direction. If for whatever reason the player doesn't see the arrows, or gets confused for any reason and walks in a completely opposite direction, and now are very far from everything, the player receives a super sprint effect where they become extremely fast until they attack again, so that they can go back to where the enemies were. Each time you revive in this game, you receive a free upgrade, and each time you kill an enemy, all of your dashes are recharged. Have you noticed those 3 floating purple things under the player? That's the shadow energy, and it is used to dash or use abilities. Currently in the game there is only one unlockable ability. This is the Moonlight Cut. You can use it against enemies that are blocking attacks, enemies that are far away, or just because you think it looks cool. It also becomes really strong if you get all the upgrades for it. If this game got your attention, you can find a link to the itch.io page where you can download it. It's 60 megabytes, it's free, it took me a month to make, and it takes about 50 minutes to beat. Give it a try.